The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some different schematics here and how a voltmeter and amp meter installed. So we're going to do something simple. 1 PB turns on a light. Okay, so we're looking at our basic schematic. You're thinking, once again, I have a voltage source, and I'm going to have my PB here, and I'm going to turn on a light. Okay, now the difference here is that I want to install an amp meter and I want to install a voltmeter. Okay, so remember, an amp meter gets installed in series. Okay, so when you take a look at the labs that we're doing here, you actually have to break the circuit and you have to put the amp meter in series, because all the current that flows through the circuit must pass through the amp meter, through the push button, through the light, through the conductors, and complete the electrical circuit. So the amp meter will be shown on the drawing, and that gets just right away installed in the circuit. Then what you do is you will add the voltmeters, and I always want you to add the voltmeters after the fact, because they're just put in parallel and they're not part of the circuit. So once the circuit's installed and you want to put the voltmeter in there, you can put the voltmeter here in parallel like that to the load, and it's going to measure the voltage drop to the load. How does this look? We will have ladder L1, L2. That's our voltage source. That's what's depicted there. And so we would come here and we would go through the amp meter, and then we would come through the push button. I guess this was 1 PB. 1 PB, and then it goes to the load, which in this case was our light, like that, and then that's our complete circuit. But now if we want to measure the voltage drop across the light, we just put the voltmeter in parallel across the light, and we have our complete circuit. Now the other type of layout that you'll see a lot of is a component layout. So I'm going to show you what we're going to build here. And the component layout basically shows you where the components are located in your system. For example, if you're looking for a transformer and the drawing shows it's in the upper right hand of the panel, then you would look in the upper right hand of the panel. If the push button was in the middle left, you would look in the middle left for the push button. So what we're going to do is we are going to build a little something like this, where we would have our light right here, and our light has got our leads here. And we're going to put our push button here, and this tends to look, the items kind of start taking the shape of the items that you have installed, because sometimes a transformer is a little bit different looking than another transformer, and you try to make those. And then we would have our let's say we put our voltmeter, or I'll put up our amp meter over here. So this will be our amp meter here, and then we would install our voltmeter here, and we're going to have our power supply right down here. All right, so this would be our power supply, and it would have 2 leads for our power supply. Okay, L1 and L2, and that's what the component layout would look like. And how would it work? Well, L1 goes into the amp meter. Okay, so apparently we would have L1 going into the amp meter, so that would be that wire. And then it would say, coming out of the amp meter, it goes to the push button. So then this wire right here, it gets a little bit messy here. It would be cleaner if it was drawn on an AutoCAD file or a CAD file or something like that. But this is the basics, so you understand, and to create the drawing. Coming out of the push button, it goes into the light. Coming out of the light, it goes back to L2. So then it would go like that. So there's my path of electricity. And then what did I say? You add the voltmeter in last. So the left goes to the left and the right goes to the right. So this voltmeter could get installed, and this could get jumped right here, and this one could just get jumped right there, and then that voltmeter is just measuring off of the load. So now that we're going to go ahead and see if we can get this to work. So apparently I'm going to have kind of a light up here in the middle left. I'm going to have a push button here, and then on the one side I'm going to have an amp meter, so I'm going to bring my amp meter in here, and this is going to need to be set to AC amps. And then I'm going to have a voltmeter over here. Okay, so this is going to be need to set to AC volts. Okay, and then I'm bringing down a power supply here. So here's my power supply right there. Okay, so if you remember the circuit, it was going from voltage, and then it was going to the amp meter, which would be the common here, and coming out of the 10 amps right there. So that has now been set up to read amps. And remember, this needs to be installed in series right here. You have to be very careful that when you're on these amps and you set this to amps, as soon as you put it in here, if you try and measure volt, if you set this up to read volts, you're going to blow this meter up. Okay, you're going to blow the fuse in it. So this is set up to read amps. All the flow will go through there, through the meter, and then come out of this wire right here. Okay, so then this went to the push button, and then the push button then went back to to the light, and then the light comes back to the voltage source. So I turn this on. I should be able to get an amp reading here, and the light should come on when I push the button. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push this button, and the light comes on, and I'm getting a very small amperage here, okay, because there's not very much amperage. Now, because this is so low, I could turn this off, and I could go to a little bit of a different scale here to get a little bit of a better reading, but I think that this is working to be sure that you understand that, yes, the amps was flowing through here, and we were reading it. How do I install the AC meter, the voltmeter? Well, once again, I'm going to come over here, and I just make my connections to get voltage there, and then these two connections just get the jumper right on top of the load right there. One on one side of the load, and the other on the other side of the load. So you can see that this wire just goes down in parallel to the meter, and this meter's in parallel to the load right there. And if I try and get that up there so we can read it, I'm going to go ahead and bring my source back on. That means I got voltage on my source. I'm not reading anything here. Maybe you just jumping around a little bit, not even a little bit of ghost voltage, but we'll come here, and I'll come over here, and I'll push this light, and it comes on. And notice that the light is reading 120.3 volts AC, and the meter is reading 0.04 amps AC. I'll shut it off. It goes back off. Push the button again. The light comes on, and it's measuring the voltage drop across the light, because this meter is in parallel, and this meter is in series. So there you have it.